she also invited any ASMR artists who wanted to do a collaboration with her to contact her. And now, some people think you should only do collaborations with people on the same sort of number of subscribers as you, but I thought there's nothing to lose. I thought I'd ask. I love her channel. I love her whispers. She is from Holland, and she's got a beautiful whisper voice. I love her accent, and she's got really soothing whispers. She often does these like whisper ramble videos, and she'll talk about her life and what's going on, and I genuinely want to know what's happening, but also often fall asleep watching her videos, so I have to watch them multiple times to actually get to the end of the video and still be awake. So that is one hazard of ASMR videos. And so I reached out to her because last year she had a baby. He celebrated his first birthday earlier this year, and I really loved some of her baby sort of content related videos. I'm actually going to put a link to one of my favourite ones in the description. There was one video in particular she did that I just loved, and at the time when she did the video I wasn't even I don't know if I was even considering having children, but I loved the video all the same. You know, she was looking at these various baby items she'd bought, and I just loved the video. So I reached out to her and I asked her if she'd be willing to do a collaboration video, and she agreed. And so we are both going to be doing videos about our experiences having babies in our own respective countries, because obviously every country has different systems and setups in place. So I'll be doing a video about having a baby in the UK. This is from a UK resident's perspective. If you were to come to the UK just to have a baby, I can't guarantee you get the same things. But if you live in the United Kingdom and are a citizen and everything, this is what it's like having a baby here. And she's going to do a video about having a baby in Holland, in the Netherlands, and just kind of comparing notes. So, as I said, I love her whisper ramble videos. I love her content. She's got some exciting things happening in her life at the moment, which I am so delighted for her, and I'm really excited to see where it leads. She's just recently going self-employed, and that's something I'm hoping to do over the course of this next year, so it's been really exciting. You know, she's done the motherhood thing, I'm following on. She's now doing the going self-employed thing, which is something I'm also going to be doing, so it's really interesting watching her videos. And then, because they haven't proceeded to apply to me in my own personal life as well as being good ASMR. So I've got a bit of paper here where I've written down some notes for myself just to kind of prompt me about different things. Oh, baby's kicking. Just to prompt myself for a bunch of like things to talk about. And so I'll kind of talk through the kind of pregnancy, giving birth, and a little bit about afterwards. I still, because obviously I'm still in the process of being pregnant, I've not had the baby yet. There's some details about how things work after baby's born, which I'm still not 100% sure about. But yeah, I can talk a bit about how the system works here. So probably the kind of most central aspect of having a baby in the UK is that we have the NHS. So the NHS is the National Health Service. It It's socialised healthcare, nationalised healthcare. We pay for it in our taxes, and it is free at point of use. This is particularly relevant for if you're having a baby, because there is a lot of things that are free at point of use for having a baby. So, going into the hospital, having the baby, any care required afterwards, all free. I don't have a bill for having a baby. You can choose to go private if you want. If you want to kind of get a kind of a higher end service. So like celebrities will choose to pay to go private, because then they get more, you know, you'll get a better service, but you pay for it. I'm really fortunate here, so I don't just get access to NHS, but I live in the Shetland Islands, where it's a small community, and we have a fantastic service here. So to be honest, NHS, the service you get does vary depending on where you live. That is true. So depending on where you live, things do vary. The NHS in Scotland does things differently to the NHS in England, and they do things differently to the NHS in Wales, and they do things differently to the NHS in Northern Ireland. So there's 4 countries in the United Kingdom. There are differences between each. There's also within each country there is health boards, and they will do things differently from area to area. So depending on your geographical area, things might be different. You might have different options available to you. I will be talking about things here in Shetland. So, for those of you who don't know, the Shetland Islands are a small group of islands that are way up north near Norway. They're north of Scotland. We belong to Scotland geographically, but we're like way up north. The Shetland Islands have a population of about 22,000 people. We have a hospital. We have a maternity ward in that hospital. But there's certain things they cannot do at that hospital, and there's certain things that if there's certain complications, you'll be sent down to the Scottish mainland, to like Aberdeen or maybe Glasgow, depending on what's going on. So you'll get sent to one of the main cities in Scotland. I don't just also live in the Shetland Islands, I also live on a small island off of the Shetland Islands. There's the Shetland mainland, and then there's a few small islands around it, and I live on one of the small islands. There's a 20-minute ferry ride from the island I live on to the mainland, and then about an hour's drive to the hospital. And there's a doctor's surgery, like a GP practice, general practice on the island I live on. There's like a health centre, so there's like doctors and nurses, but there's only about 900 people who live on the island I live on. So for my maternity care, I go to the mainland, to the main hospital in our only town. So my setup is quite different. And so I'm bearing that in mind with what I'm going to be talking about. In the UK, typically it's a midwife who looks after your care during your pregnancy and during your birth, and immediately after baby's born. I'm aware, like places like America, it's a doctor. Here in the UK, it's a midwife. There are consultants available if there's any kind of complications, if there's any problems. There are consultants available, but your general care is provided through your pregnancy through midwives. So they're the ones that do your scans, they're the ones that do all your appointments and do all your checks, and they'll talk you through your options, and they'll be the ones that are physically Crohn's disease, so I have been seeing a consultant as well. They've kind of checked in at various key points, and I'll probably have at least one more appointment with a consultant later on. They're kind of keeping an eye on things, but generally it's the midwives that are dealing with me. A lot of people, if it's a straightforward pregnancy and birth, will never see a consultant at all. That I've only seen them because I have Crohn's disease as a chronic illness. And then after you've had the baby and you've left the hospital, you then get transferred to what they call the care of a health visitor, who's someone who comes out to your house and they will kind of help provide follow-up care. So that's kind of the team that you'll have looking after you, like during your pregnancy, the birth, and afterwards. So the kind of normal course of events in the UK. So you take your home pregnancy test. You think you might be pregnant. You take your home pregnancy test. You confirm that you're pregnant. You phone your GP up. That's the general practitioner. It's like your family doctor, and so you phone them up, get an appointment with them, let them know that you're pregnant. With me, they didn't even check; they just trusted my word for it, and they refer you to the maternity team. In my case, they literally just gave me the phone number and were like, "Phone them up yourself." So I phoned the maternity team, and they ask you a few questions, sort of like, well, when was your last period? When did you do the pregnancy test? That kind of thing, to kind of get a bit of a gauge of where you are in the pregnancy. They will then book you in for a booking in appointment at around about 8 or 10 weeks, like kind of 8 to 10 weeks range. They'll book you in for the booking in appointment. I fell pregnant just before coronavirus, so by the time I was 8 to 10 weeks, we were going into lockdown here in the UK. So I had my booking in appointment just over the phone. Normally it would be in person, and they're going through like a whole range of things, checking like you're taking your vitamins, checking like your home situation, asking about your mental health, drink and drugs, and diet and exercise, and like a whole range of different things. They give you some basic advice for things you should be avoiding while you're pregnant, some advice on anything you should be doing, and so that's kind of like an initial chat. Then at 12 weeks you go in for a scan. That is kind of I think it's like a viability scan. They're making sure it's not an I can't say that word. Making sure the pregnancy's where it's meant to be and that it's all looking well. At that point you'll be offered blood tests. There'll be testing for things like Down syndrome, sickle cell disease, things like that. Comparing notes with a friend of mine in England who's currently pregnant. She was offered a few tests that I wasn't offered up here, but I wasn't too worried about it. If I wanted to, I could have gone private for them, but it wasn't anything I was that bothered about. I was happy that everything else, if everything else was fine, then those things would be fine as well. So at the 12-week scan, they make sure everything's doing okay. You'll then sort of normally see the midwife again at about 16 weeks. Now, because of a lockdown, they were keeping any appointments where I was going and seeing anybody to a minimum. So I just had a chat over the phone with her, just making sure everything was fine. And normally at your 16-week appointment, you get the whooping cough vaccine. It then protects baby, it protects you and baby through the pregnancy and baby immediately after it's born until it's old enough to get vaccinated itself. I wasn't obviously going in anywhere at 16 weeks, so they did that at my 20-week scan. I got my whooping cough vaccine, and your next scan. So you have your 12-week scan, and then at 20 weeks, you then have your, what they call the anomaly scan. So that's where they go through and look at the whole baby. There's a whole bunch of things they're looking at. They're looking at the brain, they're looking at the heart, they're looking at the kidneys and the bladder, the stomach, the bones in the arms and the legs. They're taking measurements, and they're going through the whole baby, looking and making sure everything is forming correctly and checking for any anomalies, any issues, flagging up anything that might be a problem. I know somebody who gave birth last year, and during the anomaly scan they discovered the baby had a duplex kidney, and they were able to then keep an eye on that through the pregnancy and once it was born, and just make sure there was no problems. Depending on which NHS board you fall under, depends on whether you get to find out the gender of your baby at that scan or not. So at some departments, some NHS boards, at the 20-week scan, it's also what they call the gender scan, so where they check and find that out. The place where I live do not offer that, so they will not tell me, and they won't check, they won't even look in that area, they will not tell me what I'm having. Some people, if they know what they're looking for, can see themselves, because they might be able to see ovaries, or they might be able to see testes or whatever. I don't know what I'm looking at on a scan, so I can't check for myself. So I'm not going to be able to find out what I'm having. It will be a surprise. I can pay to go private to find out. But A, my husband doesn't want to know, he wants to be a surprise, and there is no way I'd be able to keep it secret, because I can't keep anything secret. And there's no way I could know and not ruin the surprise for him. And B, there's no private hospitals in Shetland. I'd have to go to the Scottish mainland, and with coronavirus happening, I'm not taking the risk just to find out something that I'll find out when baby arrives. So when you see in my videos me talking about how I don't know what I'm having, it's because they literally won't tell me. There's a variety of reasons for that. One is that some people look at the 20-week scan as the gender scan rather than the anomaly scan, and they're going there thinking, I'm going to find out what I'm having, but they really want people to be aware of the fact that that is to find out if there's anything wrong with the baby and if there's any problems, and they don't want people getting like sidetracked with the gender and then being sort of taken by surprise with maybe some potentially bad news. The other thing is if they get it wrong and then people want to sue them for telling them wrong. These things happen. So depending, different places have taken different stances. So if I lived somewhere else in the UK, I might be able to find out, but where I'm at, I'm okay. You then have got a normal smooth running pregnancy, you'll get 2 scans, 12 weeks and 20 weeks. Because I've got Crohn's disease, I actually got an early scan at 8 weeks because I was having a flare up of my Crohn's early on in the pregnancy, and they just wanted to make sure everything was okay. So I got an extra bonus scan at 8 weeks, which was really lovely because I was freaking out about the Crohn's and the flare up, because you can have miscarriages, and I was just so worried about losing the baby. So seeing a baby at 8 weeks and seeing it like okay was such a massive help for my mental health. And then again, because I have Crohn's, they're going to be doing growth scans at 28, 32 and 36 weeks. So I'm filming this on a Sunday. This video will be going up on make sure that baby's growing on track. And if baby's growing on track by the 36-week scan, they will release me as being a low-risk birth, and I can give birth up here in Shetland, and it'll be fab. If at 36 weeks they're concerned about the size of baby, I will maybe have to go to Aberdeen, which I really don't want. But we'll wait and see what happens. So my options up here for giving birth, again, because I live on the Shetland Islands, it's different to options elsewhere. So in lots of places down south, you'll have a variety of options. You can either have a home birth, so the midwife will come out to your home and provide assistance in your home. You can have birth in a full hospital with your doctors and your everything available. Or they also have, I can't remember what they're called, but it's like midwife centres. It's like a midwife run like a centre that doesn't maybe have doctors, but if it's a kind of straightforward pregnancy, you can give birth in those places. Here in Shetland, I'm not allowed a home birth because I live on one of the remote islands, and if something were to go wrong, there is only ferries during the daytime. So if something was to go wrong during the night, they'd have to either call out the ferry crew out of their beds, or they'd have to call out the Coast Guard helicopter to take me to the hospital. Now both of those are expensive and disruptive to the local community, so it's kind of like you wouldn't go out in a boat and put yourself in danger if you could avoid it and have to have the Coast Guard called out for you. You also don't put yourself in a position where you're causing a nuisance to the emergency services if you don't have to. So I am not allowed to stay on the island I currently live on past 38 weeks. I'm supposed to go down and stay on the mainland. Thankfully, I have got both my parents and my husband's parents live on the Shetland mainland, sort of, and they're both quite close to the hospital. They're like a 10-minute drive from the hospital, maybe 15, depends who's driving, 10-15 minutes. Whereas where I'm at here, it's like a good hour and a half to 2 hours between leaving my house to getting to the hospital. So yeah, I'll have to go to the mainland. And then on the mainland of Shetland, I could probably have a home birth at my mum's house if I wanted to, but I'm happy to go to the hospital. So there's one hospital in Shetland. They've got a maternity ward. They've got the water birth pool thing, so you can have a water birth if you want. They have got most options available. They can do C-sections in Shetland if it's straightforward, or even if it's like an emergency. If they C-section, they do have an operating theatre here in Shetland. They can do C-sections. They can do a variety of pain relief options here, but they do not do epidurals. So if you need an epidural or you want one, then you have to go to Aberdeen. They also don't have any neonatal care or like a neonatal unit. So if you had your baby early, the baby would be shipped down to the mainland Scotland to get specialist care. In the same way, if there's any problems, they will ship you to Aberdeen to have your baby. So my friend who I mentioned, whose baby had the duplex kidney, because there were some question marks about the baby possibly needing a surgery after it was born, they had to go down to Aberdeen and have the baby in Aberdeen. Of course, that's obviously disruptive because then partners taking time off work and everything. And yeah, I'm grateful that at the moment, touch wood, the pregnancy has been going to plan, and so at the moment it's looking good that I'll be able to give birth here in Shetland. My husband will be able to be there hopefully, because I'll come off the island realities of rural island life. Some other things, other support available during your pregnancy is I have got access to hypnobirthing classes for free through my local maternity team. One of the ladies, one of the midwives, is trained in hypnobirthing and she provides that service free of charge. I'm also doing an online course for like 30 or 40 quid, which some people highly recommended. There's also free antenatal classes. Again, because of coronavirus, those are online at the moment. And I've also got access to breastfeeding support classes. Those aren't through, so the first, the hypnobirthing and antenatal, is through the midwife team at the hospital. The breastfeeding support classes are through another organisation, but it's like a charity, so those are also free. When you are pregnant, so in the UK, the NHS pays for all your medical stuff, but you have to pay for your own glasses and like your eye care, like your opticians, and you have to pay for your dental treatment. In Scotland, we have free medical prescriptions, so if you get like medicine, you can get that for free in Scotland and not in England. But while you're pregnant, through the whole of the UK, while you're pregnant and for a year after you've given birth, all of your medical prescriptions are free and your dental treatment is free. Now, I said I live in Scotland now, so my prescriptions are now free, so all my Crohn's medication is now free, which is brilliant. And my dental treatment, I should clarify, in England you only pay a nominal like £10 per drug, per script. But the dental treatment, unfortunately, with coronavirus, I work at a dental clinic and we're not open at the moment because of the lockdown. And when we do reopen, we will be doing minimal work, so I won't be able to go and get like a checkup or a scale and polish like what I was hoping to do because of coronavirus. But these things, hopefully, before baby is a year old and I stop getting free dental care, hopefully I will get to go and get my teeth sorted. In Scotland as well, we have got the Scottish baby box, which I have already shown you an unboxing. I think I've put that up already. Yes, I believe that's already been shown. The Scottish baby box we get for free. Obviously we pay taxes to pay for it. And then there's also some Best Start grants and some Best Start food options for people who are like on low income, certain benefits. They get money to help them buy nutritious food for themselves and the baby while like they're pregnant and when the baby's little. And then they also get like lump sum payments for when baby first arrives, for early learning, and for when the child is about to start school, so that they can go out and buy the things they need for the child. And it's the idea being that they're trying to ensure that all children have got a fair start, that the parents have got the financial ability to buy what the child needs. I'm not eligible for that because my husband's got a good paying job and neither of us are on any kind of benefits, so we won't be getting any of those. But it's nice to know that people who are struggling, you can afford to have a child. People don't have to not have a child because they can't afford it. Then after the baby's born, I think from about a few days old, your care switches from the midwife team to the health visitor, and they will maternity team, you can phone them, although you have like certain appointments that you get, you can like phone them up at any time and be like, I've got a question. I phoned up with questions about like, I've heard like mixed reviews about whether things are good for the baby or not, and I phoned up and asked. And if you're ever concerned about anything, you can just pick up the phone, just phone them and ask, and it's really brilliant. And I mean, the ladies, the midwife team we've got up here in Shetland are amazing. I've already been talking to them about so many different things, and they just put your mind at ease, and it is lovely. So I think in the UK, I think we do, especially in Scotland, I believe that we do the whole pregnancy care and the making sure everybody's got good access to resources and information. Oh, you also get this really fab book. It's like Ready Steady Baby, and it's like quite a big book, and it talks all about the pregnancy. It talks all about there's a whole chapter on a whole section on pregnancy, a whole section on the labour and birth, and a whole section on looking after baby once it's arrived. There is so much good information in this book. I found it really, as a first time mother who has no idea what I'm doing, I found this really helpful. It takes you through like even things like talking about different pain relief options during birth, and what impacts they have on you and the baby. Before I was like, yeah, just give me any old drugs, I don't care. But now actually I feel like I have more information about all the different options. Then once the baby has arrived, if either you or your partner earns more than £50,000 a year, you're not eligible, but everybody else, because if you earn over £50,000, that's quite a lot. Anybody else, as long as both you and your partner earn less than £50,000, then you get child benefits. So I'm kind of rounding these roughly because I can't be bothered giving things to the nearest pence, and also the numbers change year on year. So it's paid from birth until the child is 16 years old, or 20 if they're still in full-time education. And you get £21 for your first child, and for every other child after that you get £14, and that's per week. So it's about £100 a year, about £100 a week. Try that again, third time. It's about not even £100, about £80 a month. My maths is shocking. So yeah, it's about £80 a month. So that kind of helps you out, just especially for people like me and my husband who were not on massive salaries. It just means that the extra little costs of like additional groceries and things helps cover that. As a mother, also while you're pregnant, you're allowed paid time off for all antenatal appointments, and your employer must make reasonable adjustments for you when you're pregnant. So I'm going to be going back to my cleaning job next week, and my cat's chasing a bird. I hope it gets away. Next week I go back to my cleaning job. My employer has to be sensible. They can't be expecting me to lift big heavy buckets of water and stuff, because I just can't. So I'm not gonna. So they kind of have to be sensible about like what you can and can't do. As a mother, you're entitled to a whole year off of maternity leave. I don't think you can actually return to work in the first 6 weeks. Like, your employer cannot ask you, and I don't think you're allowed to return to work until at least 6 weeks after you have given birth. But most people take the full year off for maternity leave, and your job must be kept open for you. I think you can get made redundant, but it's like your employer has to jump through a lot of hoops to make sure that they don't get in trouble. Technically your job has to be kept open for you for when you return. Now in terms of what you get paid while you're least £120 a week, then you're entitled to the statutory maternity pay. So that's like the minimum that the government will provide. So that is the first 6 weeks of your maternity leave, you get 90% of your normal pay. Then the 33 weeks, you get either 90% of your pay or £150 a week, whichever is the lowest amount. And then for your final 13 weeks, you get nothing. So that is like I said, as long as you've been earning £120 a week up to the point of your maternity leave, that is like the least that you will get. If you've been earning less than that before that, you get nothing. You can get more than that if your employer is generous and gives you something extra because they like you. Some employers will give you like an extra bonus for, like, they'll pay you extra with the understanding that you will come back after the year. I'm not taking any of those options because a lot of the time if you don't come back, you have to pay the money back, and I can't guarantee if I'm going back to my jobs or not because I don't know what childcare arrangements I'll be able to find. The island that I currently live on, childcare is a real problem. There is a nursery, but it only is from like 3 years old, I think, and I'm not aware of any like registered childminders or anything else. There's no like private nurseries or anything, so like even if I wanted to pay for my child to be looked after, I really don't know what options there are, and it's a known problem on this island. So it depends on, in a year's time, what the situation is, whether I can return to work. And although we have family in Shetland, they're too far away to realistically be dropping the kids off there every day before going to work. So for paternity leave, so I think the UK maternity leave is reasonable. I mean, maternity pay isn't great for people who are on higher incomes because it's quite a hit, taking basically a year of very little income. But our paternity leave, I think this is where we could do better. So the father can take up to 26 weeks off, but they only get paid for 2 weeks. So they'd be taking off like 24 weeks unpaid if they wanted to take the time off. They can take the time off if they want, but they just won't get paid for it. And they'd only be getting paid, like, for those 2 weeks, you'd only be getting about £150 a week. Which, if you're like the main breadwinner, that's really not very much. So it doesn't really enable men to take time off when the baby comes. Like, my husband's not even bothering taking paternity leave, he's just taking some time off as holiday. And I think that's one of the imbalances we have here in the UK with gender inequality, is because there's so much onus on the women to take the time off to raise the children, and there isn't very much provision for men to get involved in that as well. But that's something that needs to be resolved on a national scale. There is like a shared parental leave option, but I don't really know much about it, so I can't comment. I've not done much investigating into it because my husband is the one who earns a lot of money. Well, not a lot, but the bulk of the money, and I have like a couple of little part-time jobs just to have a little bit of money coming in. So he'll be the one continuing to work and I'll stay home and look after baby. But for people who want to have a more balanced approach, it's not great. I don't really know a huge amount about childcare options. I think the government has some kind of a tax-free childcare scheme that I don't know all the details about. I've heard something about childcare vouchers. I don't know if that's still happening. I think they were talking about phasing that out, but basically the government is offering that you can get childcare tax-free. I said I don't quite understand how it works, but and then you get free childcare. You get 30, I believe it's 30 hours a week childcare, like nursery, you could put your child to nursery for 30 hours a week. Well, I've heard in some places only 15, but then I've also heard, yeah, so it's, I think depending on where you live, it's either 15 hours a week or 30 from when they're 3 years old. So for the first couple of years, I said I'm kind of unsure about what the setup is. When they're 3 and 4, then you could put them to nursery for free for like a portion of the week, whether that's 15 or 30 hours a week, and then they go to school from like 5 or 6, depending on the development of the child. And obviously school is free. So that's kind of our setup we have here in the UK. In terms of what you get, how things work. Obviously as well, that's a kind of a slightly biased view, because that's also how things work here in Shetland, which is in many ways very different to how it will work down the road. But like, I've been speaking to the midwife team about giving birth here in Shetland, and because it's such a small island, it would be like, it's rare that they'll have like 3 births in one day. That's like a rare occasion. It does happen sometimes, but because like there's only normally like 1 or 2 maybe people being born, giving birth a day, and like there'll be plenty of days where nobody's giving birth. Our population's not that big, but it does mean that when you do go in to give birth, you really get like a one-on-one with the midwife. Like, you have a midwife who's dedicated to you, and they will be looking after you, and there's like other like assistant people available. So basically, if my husband isn't able to be there for me, which I'm hoping he'll be able to be there at the birth, but if, say for example, I go into labour in the middle of the night, the ferries have stopped running, he can't get down in time for the birth, like, the medical team there, I will have their undivided attention, and they were like, don't worry if you have to give birth without a birth partner present, because we'll be there for you. And it's really, really lovely. Like, they're just so supportive and so lovely, and I'm very, very aware that like, if I was in like a big city, for example, you wouldn't get that level of one-on-one care. They would be like checking in on you, but kind of maybe having to look after multiple mothers at the same time. Whereas here in Shetland, we're very, very lucky that we've got such a good midwifery team. And I still haven't met my midwife yet. Hopefully when this video airs, I will have finally met her, because I'm hoping to meet her on Wednesday. But she seems lovely from having spoken to her on the phone, and as I've spoken to some of the other midwives on the phone, and they all just seem really lovely. And I've dealt with some of the midwives when I've gone in for scans and things. I think I've met a couple of the midwives, and they're lovely. So we're very fortunate up here. So yeah, we have a lot of access to good information about feeding, about child development, about all this kind of stuff, and they're very like pro-attachment parenting and pro-breastfeeding and all that kind of stuff up here, so they provide a lot of support with that, which is brilliant. Yeah, I can't really think of anything else. If you have any like particular questions about anything I've spoken about, or about anything else about kind of having children here in the UK, then feel free to kind of ask in the comments or send me an email or whatever. But yeah, I do have more baby video type content coming up. I've also got some non-baby content coming up, I promise. It's not all going to be babies from now on out. But obviously that is the kind of big, exciting thing that's happening in my life this year. So I'm not going to apologise for the baby content. But I'm conscious of, I try not to do too much of one thing all the time. In case it's not, because not everything will appeal to everyone. So I just wanted to thank Miss Vindica again for agreeing to this collaboration. As I said, I will be putting a link to her video where she talks about having a child in the Netherlands, mentioned about her going through baby stuff, which I just loved, and which is what inspired me to ask her to do a collab in the first place. I'll put a link to that video in the description as well. I said it's really lovely that she's agreed to do this collab. And if you aren't already a subscriber of hers, like, go check her out. She makes amazing content, and she's got some exciting things happening in her life at the moment. And yeah, she does